Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another tag video. I'm going to be doing the another palette tag video today. I believe, as far as I can tell, the creator of this tag was Kelly Baute. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Here on YouTube, so I will have her channel as well as her video linked down below. But if you guys are interested in seeing my answers to this tag video, then just keep watching. Alright guys, the first question is your first palette, and I actually don't still own my first palette, but my first palette was the Naked 2 palette by Urban Decay. I used the heck out of that palette. I probably panned at least half of the colors in that palette. I went on to buy some of the single Urban Decay shadows in that color single Urban Decay shadows that were in that palette, which I still have in my collection right now. But I loved that palette so much, but I finally did have to end up decluttering it because there was basically nothing left in it. So the Naked 2 by Urban Decay was my first palette. Next question is your most recent palette purchase, and I actually purchased 3 palettes at one time, and they were the new Wet n Wild palettes. I just got these yesterday. I got the shades, the palette shades Comfort Zone, Rosé in the Air, and then I also picked up Nude Awakening. So I haven't jumped into these yet, but I'm really excited to give these a try. I have the old Comfort Zone one, which I actually haven't even opened yet. Shame on me. But yeah, these are really pretty and they're nice and compact, so I'm really excited to play around with these. Alright, the third question is one palette that you regret missing out on, and for me, that would be either the Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca palette or the Anastasia Beverly Hills, I'm not going to be Self-Made palette. And the reason for that, it's not even because I like all of the shades in the Self-Made palette, but I've become such a fan of Anastasia Beverly Hills that I just wish I had that palette to sort of like round out my collection. So it's definitely a toss-up between the Mi Vida Loca palette and the Self-Made palette. The Mi Vida Loca palette just is such an awesome palette if you like are into color, want to play around with color, anything like that. It's so appealing to the eyes. So yeah, definitely regret missing out on that one as well. Next question is one palette that makes you happy to look at, and for me that would be my Natasha Denona Lila palette. And the reason being, I think one is probably because I know how much money I spent on this, but I just love the cool tone shades in this. I love like the pink and purple in here. It's just such a pretty palette, so pretty to look at. And yeah, this palette just really makes me happy inside to look at. So I definitely need to play around with it a little bit more. I like that it has like the red and brown neutrals, but again, I just love like this little like quad right here. It makes me so happy to look at. And honestly, just like the outside of this palette too, like I love this purple color. This just like, I'm just like, this is my baby. Next question is one palette that you've changed your mind about, and for me that is actually the Lorac Pro palette. And for me, this is a changed my mind from like this being a good palette to like not loving this palette so much. And the reason being, my daughter has accidentally, you know, gouged out a few of these, but that's not the reason I've changed my mind about this. I just find that the Lorac formula is so soft and buttery that sometimes if you try to use too many shades, they can muddy together and your look just doesn't end up looking as good as it could. So for me, this formula just is not my favorite, and it used to be one of my top. Another palette that I used the heck out of in college was the Lorac Pro 1. I panned at least like 7 or 8 shades in that palette too. So I used to use the Lorac Pro all the time, but I've just kind of changed my mind about loving the formula. So that would be one palette that I've changed my mind about. Sorry, camera battery died. Okay, the next question is one palette that surprised you, and for me that is the Master palette by Mario in collaboration with Anastasia Beverly Hills. I picked this palette up on a whim, and I didn't think that I would get that much use out of it just because there's so many shimmery shades and not that many mattes. I definitely didn't find that I would use like this green color or this blue color up here, but I use this palette all the time. This is one of my go-to palettes. I have used every single color in this palette. I absolutely love it. I will be so sad if when this expires. It may have already expired, but like when the shades stop performing, it's that old, because I just absolutely love this palette. The quality on it is so good. I love the mix of colors. This palette, like, it looks so neutral, but it inspires me so much. So this is one palette that actually surprised me, and I'm super glad that I ended up picking it up, because again, I wasn't going to. This palette didn't like interest me at all. I just went in to buy, what palette was I buying? I feel like I may have been buying the, oh, this is gonna bug me. I can't remember. I went in to go buy one palette, and this was just sitting out, and they had the sample sitting out, or like the swatch test one, and it was at a Macy's of all places, and they were out on the sales floor of this palette, and for some reason I was just like, oh, like, do you have any more of these in the back? And she ended up having them in the back, so I was like, okay, this is a sign that I need to pick this up, and oh, thank goodness I did. I love this palette. Next question is one palette that inspires you, and for me that is the Sephora Pro palette. This is another palette that makes me really happy to look at, and I actually really haven't used this palette, but it has so much color in it that it just really inspires me to try someday to step outside of my comfort zone. Today I really stepped out of my comfort zone with this eye look. I've been really experimenting with different looks than just like your everyday natural eyeshadow look lately, so the more I experiment, the more I get inspired to step into some of these brighter colors. But yeah, I would say this palette out of all of my palettes is the one that inspires me the most. Next question is one palette that is on your wish list, and for me that is the Natasha Denona Star palette. It's $169, so it'll probably sit on my wish list for quite some time, but the colors in there just like grab my soul. There is that blue, green, like brown shade in there, that dual chromatic shade that I feel like so many other palettes do and do well, but I just can't imagine like anyone would do it as good as Natasha Denona. And then it has a couple of like darker purple shades and red shades that I'm really interested in, so that is definitely the palette that is on top of my wish list right now. And then the last question is your no fail palette, and for me that would be the Tartelette in Bloom. I picked this up when I started getting into YouTube and really getting into makeup, and I've used the heck out of this palette. Like every single row, every single shade, there's not one shade in here that I have not used, and used more than like probably 10 times. I use this palette so often. This is always the palette that comes traveling with me. I absolutely love the Tartelette in Bloom palette. This is one that if the shades stop performing well because it expires, I will definitely go out and pick up another one. If this were to ever discontinue, I would buy a backup just because I love this palette so much. Alright you guys, those are all the answers to the another palette tag for me. If you guys haven't already done this tag video, I definitely encourage you to do so. I know I'm late to the game with this. I think this tag video has been out for a while, but I thought it would just be fun to do myself. Definitely let me know the answers to your questions in the comment box below, and if there's any videos that you are interested in seeing from me in the future, let me know. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to do so before you go, and other than that, I'll just see you in my next video. Bye!